Yeah, I'm just looking at some numbers here of homeless in New York. And then obviously this is government figures to give people an insight. But they said in July, there was 52,000 homeless people in New York. I think that's, but they said last year it was over 100,000 on any single day. So it's a bit of a disparity. How was it 100,000 there? Has it improved by 50% in July as it runs up to the election? Potentially not. But even with their own 52,000, it's nearly 17,000 children. So that's 17,000 people under the age of 16 homeless in New York City every single night right now. And that's like a crazy figure for people to understand. This huge amount of people. And then again, you think, I always love it. There's any election come up, suddenly the new figures coming out from the government's like improved from last year. So, has it improved by 50% in the last year? No, you're just telling me it's getting worse.
No, I'm sure it has, because what they've done is, I don't know what they do is they take a bunch of taxpayer money. I'm not joking. It's what they actually do. And they put people in hotels. And that cuts the numbers. So they're not actually housed, you just put them in hotels.
And how long do they put them in hotels for? Just a short period of time so they can count them, or?
Correct. Yes. So they're telling the truth, but they're being, I guess, they're not being clear. Literally this, and de Blasio did this more than anybody. De Blasio would literally put them in 4- and 5-star hotels and would pay with taxpayer dollars. And just pay the hotels. Here's money, put them all in there. And they just go into the hotels. And they did it in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is a very wealthy area. And the people got upset. They goes, we're paying $6,000, $7,000 a month in rent. Yet I got to come outside and see 45, people who are literally shooting up in front of my kids and or having sex. This actually happened. Having sex in the streets for money while I'm walking my kids to school. They're like, no, we're moving out. And people start leaving. And these are people who literally just packed up and left their lease and said, I'm not paying my lease. Now imagine you're a landlord and you're counting on $6,000 per month from multiple units, and all of a sudden they're not coming in anymore. You're not happy. You're not happy. So what are you going to do? You start telling the government, I'm not happy. So what does the governor do to make you happy? Well, I'll pay you $6,000, put a homeless person in it, and I'll use taxpayer dollars for it. And they'll do that. They'll pay these people money to put them in this place, and now they're not homeless anymore because they're sitting inside someone's apartment, or they're sitting inside a commercial place that no longer can put anybody in it, or they're sitting inside a hotel. So it is true what they're doing. It's just disingenuous.
Yeah, and it doesn't really solve the problem
at all.
It does not. Increasing here. They speak about it in California, they speak about San Diego, but and then they move them on. So they say, yeah, so it's out of sight, out of mind type thing.
Correct.
We've cleaned the area, and they're all living there in their tented villages, especially if you go up to LA, it's everywhere. And then suddenly they just come along with, the police come along, shift them along. The road sweeper comes along. That's these people's possessions, by the way. This is them living in the street. They've collected all this. They've got their little, corner of this encampment. That's where they've got their life right now.
Yeah.
That's all taken away. Boom. You're all going there. Over 50% have got mental health problems. And then suddenly it's out of sight, out of mind. But then suddenly 2 months later, it comes up somewhere else. And this time there's even more homeless people. So
Absolutely.
it's a never-ending circle that gets worse and worse and worse.
The way you fix this is several-fold. Number one, you've got to make a system that does not have government bureaucracy in it, which means you allow the private sector to do a better job of it. You allow the private sector to actually discriminate, which is going to sound terrible, but I mean this in a very good way. In other words, what I mean is you want to have them to have special housing for special types of people, special types of demographics, special populations, like, for example, single moms, right? Why would I want to put single moms in with other people who aren't single moms if I don't have to? Why wouldn't I want to create a specific building for single moms where they have small, tiny apartments, which are, again, very small? You want them tiny on purpose against the Department of Building regulations. Why? Because to your point, when people become homeless for a certain period of time, they become accustomed to their small area of a thing, whatever that is. That becomes their habit. If you give them larger apartments, they tend to just go into one small area anyway. You want them to feel comfortable and to be able to move out of that apartment when they feel appropriate. You do that. and you create services and social environments within that building. That's being done across this country and other places. So the single moms are on the, say, the first floor or the second floor. The first floor is some type of social environment where they can get together and breastfeed together or play with their kids or whatever the case may be, and become social and interact again. When people are homeless, they forget. Literally, they forget the skills on how to be involved in the average, back and forth that non-homeless people are part of. Let them get back into the world. Let them ease back in and feel comfortable about themselves. Deal with people who also have the same issues they have. And then the basement is services. That may be things like helping the single moms with resumes to get back into the workforce, maybe childcare for those who want to put their kids in childcare for a day. They can feel comfortable and safe while they go out and try to get their life back together. It may mean education services if some of these moms are young and want to get their high school diploma, whatever. You create that environment where you're a single mom, you can just go there. Just go there. Do it with veterans, right? Do it with people who have mental illness. Do it with individual groups. You can just show up. And that becomes the system that they become in. Now, that's the first piece. But it's a second piece of this, and that is many people who don't trust the system anymore or who've been failed by the system, they're not going to believe me. They're not going to go into my housing because they've already been in that game. They don't believe it. They don't trust it. They've surrendered already. But many of them will go to places like the MTA, which is why I have an idea called the Caring Caboose. The Caring Caboose is the idea that the last subway car of every other subway train is a place where people who either are homeless and or have addiction problems can go to get help. Is no cops there because many of these people are afraid of cops, private security, and counselors, addiction, and psychiatry services are in that last car. They get Wi-Fi and then get connected to the system. So now Johnny shows up and they go, Johnny, oh my God, how you been? Let me check you on the computer. Oh, wait a minute. Have you had your medication today? Blah, blah. How you feeling? Boom, boom, boom. Look, have you been to the new house? There's a new house over there in Brooklyn. Have you been to that house? Can I get you in the system, Johnny? Why? Because when you're an addict and you're jonesing, you don't want help. You want your next hit. That's what you want. You don't want help. I know my mother was an addict. I know how it is to have an addict in your family. If anyone watching, I know has been affected by addiction in some way, either someone they love, someone they know, or themselves. Because it's everywhere in our country. So you've been affected by it in some way. When an addict's jonesing, they don't want help. So give them their equivalent of methadone or whatever is the equivalent of getting them so they're not jonesing anymore, or cannabis product, or whatever's required. Again, I'm not an expert here, but there will be experts there who will know what to do to get them down so they're not jonesing anymore, and then go, you know what, Johnny, it's time for some help. How can we get you going someplace? I don't know whether it's the first, second, 200th, or 1 millionth I love you that gets Johnny to get his act together. But if we never give him the I love yous, he's never getting it together. And I would rather him not die. I'd rather him have a chance at getting things, taken care of. Up, and then we go. Let me go to affordable housing. Thank you, Patricia, for that. The next piece is, in these houses I'm talking about, the rule is, Patty, the rule is all they have to do is pay 1/3 of their income, whatever that is. If you make no income, it's nothing. If you make $300 a month, it's $100. You pay 1/3 of your income. That's it. Your income is irrelevant. You just pay 1/3 of it. It is run by a private company, sponsored by companies that want to do the right thing, meaning they don't really care about the right thing, but who want to have a better image, right? So now some company like BP does an oil spill and they want to look good. Good, sponsor these houses. Instead of dropping, $20 million on some ad campaign, drop $20 million and sponsor this house for 3 years. Do that instead. And it'll be the BP house of homeless mothers who are getting better or whatever. And then they'll sponsor it. And then the people who are making it will make some money. And as that house makes money, it keeps going, right? Because some people are spending something, using 1/3, whatever little bit it is, that goes and moves the housing further and further and further. So that's how that works. But now, second, you then want to have a public housing world to where once you can get out of that homeless shelter, basically, into actual public housing, you want to make it affordable enough and, more importantly, rent to own. You want all public housing to be rent to own. You also want it to be built by companies, real estate companies that are now building other things. How do you get them to do that? They don't want to do it. It's cheap housing. Who wants to do that? You do it by, if they do rent to own public housing, if they do that rent to own housing like this, inexpensive, affordable, once they sell the property or properties, that organization pays no tax on it. And the people on the left get mad. Oh, you're giving the wealthy tax breaks. They already get tax breaks. They're already doing it. It's not like I'm making up tax breaks. It's already there. What I'm trying to get them to do is the right thing with their money. They could put money into this. People will begin to rent to own, actually own their own apartments. When you start owning your own apartment, you're not mad at gentrification. You're happy at it. You're making money. You're good. When wealthy and savvy people move, they always get a check because they will always have equity in their home. When people who aren't wealthy and or savvy move, if they're lucky, they get 1/2 of their month's, security back. If they're lucky, usually get nothing back. Well, all of a sudden now you have a rent to own. You get ownership after the first year, which is not normal, but that has to be part of the deal. You get ownership the first year. After the first year you leave, if you leave, you get a check. You're able to move and have ownership in your home. It's a whole different way of doing things. If we made that happen, you would make a massive dent in your homeless population, a massive dent in your addiction population, a massive dent in your mental health population. And again, we're always going to have people with problems. People will always fall down, make mistakes, be unlucky. That will always happen, but we can make it less and less.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well, Larry. And it's also, I was researching like public libraries. So what people don't realize is that for homeless people, public libraries, where's their key access point to the world. So if we're closing down all the public libraries, how do these people get on the internet? How can they apply for a job? You need to go online somewhere and apply for a job. Homeless people use public libraries. So when people think, oh, the public, I don't borrow a book anymore. I've got a Kindle. I read stuff online. What's the point in having a library anymore? And they're closing them all down. That was the focal point for homeless people to get back in onto the system. Now, if we close all the public libraries down, that's their access point coming in now. It's just disappeared like that.
Well, yeah, but again, it's not that I want to shut down libraries. I don't. But my point, if you see my point is always, I don't want government to be the only monopoly. I want others to be able to find other ways to fix it. This goes back to talking about third parties, right? I want people to be able to experiment, right? I said, just because I was guessing, that single mom housing would be a good idea. I'm not a social worker. I could be wrong. Maybe there's another group of people or population that will be a better choice. Let people figure that out, right? I'm some guy running for governor. I don't know what the right populations are. I know that certain populations will work. We've seen it happen when it came to prison populations in the Humvee program for veterans. We've seen it work for veterans here in the Bronx, the Jericho Project. So I know it can work, right? But you got to find the right population, right? I don't know what. Clearly, people with mental illness, they're not a monolith. There's different types of disabilities and mental disabilities and illnesses. So I don't know which population is the right one. But if government will make a line and make decisions, and that will be the only answer. I don't want the public library to be the only answer. I would like there to be many answers for people to get themselves back into society as fast as they feel comfortable, the way they want to get back into society, right? One of the things we had, this is, I think, on the Bloomberg, if I'm not mistaken, in New York City, there's a group of people who went by with mobile showers. And the idea was to have mobile showers plus new clothes. To your point, right? If you decide, okay, this is the day, I'm going to try to get a job, my head's clean, I'm going to try to get my stuff together. How do you get a job when you haven't showered in 3 weeks? Or how do you head back to your family when you realize, hey, I got to get clean in case of addiction. I want help of my brother, my sister, my cousin, my aunt. They don't want to see you when you were wearing the same clothes from 4 weeks ago. So what do they do? Mobile showers with clothes. If you were on the street, you could go in, take a shower, put on some new clothes, get back out there. Feel like you're part of society again with some new clothes and a nice hot shower. City shut them down. City's like, well, no, water issues and parking issues, and shut them down. Why would we be stopping that? But again, if we have those houses I'm talking about, that's a place to go shower. If you have a Caring Caboose on a train, have another one of those at bus stations, right? Now you have a bus station, which is now going to be a Caring Caboose at a bus station. This is where people go when they're in trouble. They go to the MTA, bus stations, subways, where they go. Meet them where they are, give them some hope, and then plug them into a system that works. How am I going to, if you've had an addict in your life, you know this feeling I'm going to tell you right now. Sometimes the person you love just kind of disappears. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sadly, sometimes for years. They just disappear and you can't find them. Well, how am I going to get my loved one into a program or into the system when I physically can't find them for weeks or months on end? How do I do that? Well, if I've got a Caring Caboose in the subway and or I got the same situation at a bus station, they will check themselves in. That's where they'll go check in. Now I can just go there and say, hey, did my brother show up? Oh, who is his name? Oh, yeah, he was here last Thursday. Oh, my God, he was. Awesome. Okay, he's alive. Good. He's alive. Let him know that his brother's here. And next time he comes, give me a call. I'll come pick him up. This kind of thing could actually happen, but it doesn't. And I'm the only one talking about ways to actually fix things. And here's the crazy reason why. I actually talk to New Yorkers. The other candidates don't. They don't. They say, I cross the state. Yes, they go from fundraiser to fundraiser within each county. They don't go talk. I talk to people in diners. I talk to people at VFWs, at American Legions. I go to vape shops. I just talk to people. That's how I know this. I've been through this stuff. Sadly, people don't want to hear it.
But yeah. But it's like people need to apply something new in order to fix the problem. It was like the tiny homes idea. You know, this guy developed this tiny home in California. Yep. If people have seen it, it's like they create these little small houses for homeless people. They all love this idea. They could have their own door. They could lock and keep their possessions in there. I had a small toilet, had a small sink. It was somewhere where they could change. It had a little bed. It was very small, had like different types of ways of heating, etc. He started to put them up, and then the California government, we don't like this. Doesn't fit in with our regulation.
Correct.
So you're getting away from a system where a guy's invented something. He's prepared to build these things at no cost, and I think they were coming in at like $5,000 each, and he's raising funding to pay for these small, tiny homes. And then the California governor, no, we can't do that because it doesn't fit in with our regulation. But we'll just have them on the streets anyway, and we'll just getting worse, you know?
Well, here's the issue to remember, and the real reason why this happens, the reason why so many things happen. Governors in general, New York State is notorious for this. They want to control who gets the jobs. So when someone decides to go do something on their own, the governor isn't deciding who gets the jobs. So the governor's corporate cronyism system doesn't work and it fails, which means they don't raise money, which means they can't keep political power. So I can't have you, Alistair, I can't have you go out and building things unless I hand you the check from the government and you are now indebted to me. You're just fixing things. That's a problem. You need to be indebted to me to fix things. So one, I can make sure you do as I say and you give me money. And two, I can take credit for everything that's done.
Yeah.
So it may seem like it's nuts, but always follow the money. That's what it's about. They're not trying to help the homeless. They're trying to make sure the power and money's in charge.